right to Alex Hogan, who is live in D.C. with the latest on Iran. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning. So U.S. Central Command made this announcement just hours ago, saying American forces carried out strikes this weekend, bombing Iranian radar and drone control sites in Gorak, Iran, and Qasem Island. And according to Central Command, the measured and deliberate strikes occurred on Saturday and Sunday in response to aggressive Iranian actions that included the shootdown of a U.S. MQ-1 drone that was operating over international waters. U.S. fighter aircraft swiftly responded by eliminating Iranian air defenses, a ground control station, and 2 one-way attack drones that pose clear threats to ships transiting regional waters. And now Kuwait says it's intercepting incoming drone and missile fire. That comes as Iran confirmed it carried out retaliatory strikes today, and Iran's Revolutionary Guard today says the source of that is what it calls U.S. attacks on a telecommunication tower. President Trump met with advisors in the Situation Room here at the White House here in Washington on Friday, but had yet to make an announcement over the weekend over how to move forward. Overnight, he posted on Truth Social, writing in part, Iran really wants to make a deal, and it will be a good one for the USA and those that are with us. Both the U.S. and Iran have exchanged strikes since the ceasefire started in early April. It's not clear yet how these strikes will impact the ongoing negotiations to end the war that has now stretched 3 months. Todd, Ashley.
Okay, Alex, thank you. CENTCOM confirming the U.S. military has struck more Iranian targets after the downing of an American drone as the U.S.-Iran ceasefire is once again tested. President Trump commenting on negotiations with Tehran with Fox's Lar Trump.
We're making a great deal. We're going to make a great deal. Other, we'll just go back and finish it off militarily. We're getting what we want slowly. Very tough negotiators. It takes a long time. I'm in no hurry. I'd like to say I'm in a hurry because, you know, gasoline prices are going to come tumbling down. But if you're going to be in a hurry, you're not going to make a good deal. And slowly but surely, we're getting, I think, what we want. And if we don't get what we want, we're going to end it a different way.
Joining us today to discuss this is the former Deputy National Security Advisor for VP Cheney, Steve Yates. Steve, thanks for getting up and talking to us about this. You heard Trump just there say he was in no hurry to get a deal done. Do you think this is what the Iranians are kind of banking on? Because before you know it, we're going to be in August and September, then there's some midterms, and we're still left with these high gas prices.
Well, the Iranian regime, the remnants of it, definitely have as part of their strategy playing for time. But the president is exercising a patient approach that I don't think very many of his critics would have assumed he would have in his toolkit. We have maximum pressure from the economic policy side of things, military side of things, and he's tried to move forward with a different kind of diplomatic strategy, making sure that allies in the region are prepared to carry forward what I would consider to be maintenance mode. And I think what we saw over the weekend is a little bit what that maintenance mode would look like. If you have remnants of a regime, when you have a regime that size, its military capabilities are never going to go to zero. But when they act out in ways that challenge freedom of navigation, use the tentacles of terror, or look like they're going back to resume the nuclear program, then they'll be hit by us or an ally to try to keep things on course. So I think that's what the president's gradualism is aimed at. I certainly hope that the Strait is open very, very soon and that the pressure campaign is working. At this point, it's hard to watch from the outside because we just can't have certainty. But I think the correlation of power is the right mix at this point.
You know, Steve, a few different outlets reporting this weekend that, you know, this move is more about specifics of how the U.S. gets the material and the timing, and that's in the reference to enriched uranium. And they're also wanting to amend some of the wording and language around opening the Strait of Hormuz. How important is that?
Well, I think facts on the ground are going to matter much more than the wording of agreements. And that's going to come ultimately by this coalition of power that the president is exercising and basically forcing these things to move forward the right way. We have more time when it comes to trying to deal with the ultimate disposition of this very degraded nuclear program. It's a concern, but it's one of those things that it's much, much more important that we continue to degrade the IRGC, this military capability of Iran, and make sure that is in check. That is sort of the tallest tent pole in the Iranian tent this this point. The civilian leadership is degraded. The mullahs, we haven't even had a proof of life out of the new Ayatollah in a while. It's the IRGC that we're trying to influence and contain at this point. I think that has to be mission number one.
You know, we talk a lot about the Strait of Hormuz, and in the news media and politicians, they just assume that the average American knows what those words mean and what they are. But in all reality, they don't. So paint us a picture, if you could quickly, of if we don't have a deal made by September, August, around that time, what the next year could look like for us here in America.
Well, the Strait of Hormuz is a faraway place. People can be excused for not thinking about it, but it's a very narrow passage where a high percentage of oil, natural gas, and other commodities will transit. It tends to feed world markets. That matters to Americans, even though we have an abundance. If world prices are high, then the abundance we have will get sold to those international markets. That's the way free markets are going to work, and that means prices can still be high for us. But ultimately, I think if the president gets the right allies, our Arab allies and others, to step in and execute on what maintenance needs to look like in this region, that frees America up to focus on our prosperity, other challenges around the world, say a revisionist China trying to challenge us on economic competition and national security challenges in the Indo-Pacific.
You know, and then there's also the question, just because Tehran agrees to this and Iran agrees to this, who's to say they're even going to stick to it?
My assumption is that they won't, and that's why I think that the coalition of power has to remain in place. We can change what the balance of that is in terms of the expense and the presence of America, but the United States, under President Trump's leadership, has proven that we can come from this side of the world and strike decisively targets anywhere in the world without them knowing we're coming or going. And if we arm and work with our other allies, they have the capability to take better care of their neighborhood. I think we're getting close to that mix. I think the last piece of this has to be the insurers. That's where the financial part of the world has to make it affordable for the shippers to take the necessary risk to actually move their cargo. That has been, I think, a missing link in the last couple of months. It has to happen soon.
Okay. Steve Yates, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
9 minutes after the top of the hour, CENTCOM confirming the U.S. carried out strikes on more Iranian targets over the weekend.
But the president says that Iran still wants to make a deal as the fragile ceasefire remains on edge.
So Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the latest. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. CENTCOM says U.S. forces conducted strikes against multiple Iranian targets over the weekend. The strikes hit Iranian radar systems and command and control centers for drones in Kuwait, Iran, along the coast and on Keshem Island. CENTCOM described the action as defensive in nature to prevent Iran from attacking international shipping lanes and after Iran shot down a $4 million U.S. drone. The Iranians responded by targeting Kuwait with drones and missiles early this morning. Overnight, President Trump posted to Truth Social saying, in part, Iran really wants to make a deal, and it will be a good one for the USA and those that are with us. Iran's parliament speaker and top negotiator, Mohammad Ghalibaf, said this on Sunday about the ongoing talks.
What matters to us are the tangible achievements we must obtain in order to undertake our own commitments in return. And until we are certain that we have secured the rights of the Iranian nation, we will not approve any agreement.
We're also tracking developments in the conflict between Israel and Iran's largest proxy, Hezbollah. Over the weekend, Hezbollah launched more than 50 rockets into northern Israel as Israeli ground forces pushed deeper into southern Lebanon. This morning, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the IDF to strike the Lebanese capital of Beirut, specifically the Dahya neighborhood, a Hezbollah stronghold.
I instructed the IDF to expand the maneuver in Lebanon. Our forces have crossed the Litani. They have seized dominant terrain. They captured the Beaufort Ridge, and now my instruction is to deepen and expand our hold in places that were under Hezbollah control.
Iranian officials have often tried to tie a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah to the broader agreement between Iran and the United States. And even as we speak, guys, sirens have sounded across northern Israel. Hezbollah is continuing dozens of attacks on an hourly basis against this country. Guys?
Trey, just curious, Iran's president submitted that letter of resignation to the office of the supreme leader. How will that affect these negotiations, and why does he want to step down?
So we've not been able to confirm those reports that Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has offered his resignation. And even over the weekend, Pezeshkian said the reports were not true. They initially came from Iran International, which is a media organization that is affiliated with Iranian opposition. But broadly, when we talk about the fracture that exists inside of Iran, it is something to discuss in the framework of these ongoing conversations with the United States, because there are more moderate voices in Tehran, such as the parliament speaker, Mohammad Khalibaf, Masoud Pezeshkian, the country's president, and others who are reportedly clashing internally with Iran's IRGC, these hardline Islamic officials that want to return to war with the United States. And this is part of the challenge right now for the Trump administration as they try to get a deal together with Iran. There is a fracture right now inside of Iran as it relates to the situation on the ground and what officials in Tehran want to happen in terms of those negotiations with the administration.
So President Trump over the weekend, Trey, said, I'm going to change a little of my demands. I want to know specifically, the way I understand it, you tell me if I'm wrong. I want to know specifically how we're going to get the uranium out, the timeline in which we're going to do it, and when that's going to start. Because the president's worried about the optics, too. They want funds. What Iran wants is funds unfrozen. The last thing we need is pallets of cash being dropped off in Tehran again. So the president doesn't want to do that. So what could you tell me about the ongoing process?
Yeah, reports indicate President Trump late last week in the Situation Room at the White House was very clear and actually pushed back on some of the framework that exists right now in terms of the negotiation with Iran. He wants more concessions from the Iranian regime and to ensure that the agreement will be a great deal for the United States. Remember, President Trump is operating in the best interest of the American people, and so the Iranians oftentimes are going to push back on many of these points within a possible agreement. But the president said something very interesting to Fox News over the weekend, and I'll repeat it here. He said during an interview that initially the Iranians were committing to not having a nuclear weapon or creating a nuclear weapon within their country. And the president raised a very important question. What if the Iranians try to buy a nuclear weapon on the international black market? And ultimately, this language was included in the agreement. And it gives you a sense of just the attention to detail that President Trump has in this possible agreement with the Iranian regime. And it's the reason that this is taking some time, because the president isn't simply going to sign a bad deal. He wants a deal that has everything on the table, and the concessions that the Iranians are going to make as it relates to their nuclear program and their ongoing efforts to destabilize the region through the Strait of Hormuz are expected to be excessive.
Great job out there, Trey. And I think it just also goes to the point, guys, that there are many people that are trying to rush the president when it comes to this. They see the midterms. I understand the political decisions here, and when it comes to gas prices as well. But he's not going to be rushed. And some of the language that we're getting there, it's just non-starters, and they're going back and forth. And so each week and each day we hear that they've come to an agreement. Well, the president hasn't seen the full language. He just hears in spirit of what's in the deal, and then he reviews it and says, I can't do that specifically. So give him the time that he needs. But it doesn't look like they want a deal, though. I will say that.
Yeah, he had that great interview with Laura over the weekend and was saying, I can't be rushed. I'm not going to rush to make a decision here.
We're making a great deal. We're going to make a great deal. Other, we'll just go back and finish it off militarily. We're getting what we want slowly. Very tough negotiators. It takes a long time. I'm in no hurry. I'd like to say I'm in a hurry because, you know, gasoline prices are going to come tumbling down. But if you're going to be in a hurry, you're not going to make a good deal. And slowly but surely, we're getting, I think, what we want. And if we don't get what we want, we're going to end it a different way.
All right, here we go. President Trump reportedly sending Iran a revised peace framework, tougher terms. He reaffirms he's in no hurry to get things done. And don't worry about it. I am not going to rush a deal. Fox News contributor Mark Thiessen joins us right now to go over this deal. Mark, great to see you. Great job over the weekend.
Thank you.
All right, so let's outline, if we could, what the president is actually demanding from Iran first. First off, they say we can't get a nuclear bomb, can't have a nuclear weapon. The question is, how do we ever observe that? How do we ever get an accurate count of that? Because they build their facilities into walls. The MEK is the one who exposed a lot of this stuff. Yeah. They never can.
And also not just not build a nuclear weapon, but not acquire one or obtain one from somebody else, because that's another possibility. So he's trying to close. He wants that to be lock solid. But the problem is the pledge is not enough. He's got to get the nuclear dust, because their words are useless. We have to actually get their weapons, get all their equipment.
And the way I understand it, Mark, the president said, okay, I need to know when I'm getting it and how you're able to dig out the uranium, about 1,000 pounds worth. That would be significant to get that out of the country. But the problem is the Iranians have already said that was humiliating for us to ship some of the uranium out during the Barack Obama days. So how are they going to suddenly let this uranium out? We'll have to see. Now, what are the Iranians demanding for us? Okay, take off the blockade of their blockade. We're not going to do that until we see some movement.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So first of all, he has to get the nuclear dust. Like in 2004, the United States went into Libya, got all of its centrifuges, all of its nuclear dust, took it to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. We need something similar to be able to show that this program is finished.
Do you think that we would ever agree to let another nation take the uranium?
There's lots of ways to skin the cat. It's just not got to be. It's got to be not in Iran, and it has to be in friendly hands. And one of the things that's interesting, people are saying, oh, well, we didn't accomplish anything with the military strikes. But the Iranians are telling us that stuff is so deeply buried, they can't get to it. We would actually have to come in and get it.
And we know that's not true. We did a lot of damage in the military strikes.
Yeah.
We just don't have a vision in there. Very interesting that the Internet's back up and what we're going to begin to see. So safeguarding domestic nuclear rights, that's a little problem. We don't want them to have nuclear rights. They've already proven that they're not dependable or reliable. And they have a terroristic tendency. Maintaining sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, we would never allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's the big problem right now, is that they have shown that they can use the weapon of control of the Strait of Hormuz to deter us from restarting combat operations, from opening the strait itself. We can open the strait by force if we want to, but we've left that weapon in their hands, and that's a problem.
So the strait is controlled by Oman and is controlled by Iran. Oman is starting to have some tendencies like, hey, Iran's my buddy. We have made that clear. If you continue to show the tendency to side with Iran, Oman and our relations are over. But it goes to show you how sincere were they as an honest, so-called honest broker, because they were the stage for a lot of the talks that were going on. And finally, security guarantees and war reparations. They actually think we're going to write them a check for the damage we did to their country.
Yeah, so this is the big problem with even a good deal. Let's say Donald Trump gets a good deal, which I think he probably could, which means we get the nuclear dust, we end their nuclear program, and possibly even get the Arab states to join the Abraham Accords. He could build that as a huge success. Even if we do that, if we give them money, it gives a lifeline to the regime. There's been reports that they're talking about a $300 billion reconstruction fund for the Iranian regime. We can't give Donald Trump said these people are sick. He's literally said that. This is a regime that killed 40,000 of its own citizens just a few months ago. We can't give them $300 billion. And the reason why we can't give them $300 billion is because if we lift up this regime and give it a lifeline, everything that Donald Trump has achieved with Operation Epic Fury and with Operation Midnight Hammer is reversible. Because once he's gone in 2.5 years, if we get another weak president like Joe Biden in the Oval Office, do you think they're going to abide by this?
And I would say President Obama, too.
Yeah.
I would say they're both like that.
Exactly.
And by the way, there's the things we can do. We could stop them getting resupplied through land. We stopped them through sea, but we could stop them through land. And that would be very significant. We could also up the sanctions and start shutting them down, pressing China. Mark, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.